every time when I build integration between two systems, for instance, some ERP systems with some custom code system, or I don't know, Dynamics or whatever, usually there is certain integration layer, and then this integration layer usually again, not just imports data, like creates a new record, but also it updates the data. Now the update models are relatively complex, relatively often, a lot of relatives here, but they're complex, and they have like a root, like a top level, and they have then quite often children. For instance, if you are replicating accounts, usually they'll have a child entities, which will be, I don't know, locations or things like that. Now, what is a tricky thing when you're doing the import of those records? It's a tricky thing to compare the lists, because usually you don't have the same types of lists. So from the database, you're going to read certain model, you're going to use a certain model, and then from the interface you will have a different one, probably some sort of minimized version of the database model. Now, it is obviously a bit tricky to compare those things, because usually when you're building some integration layer, you will have multiple interfaces, multiple tables where you have to work this. And then it's quite important that we build some sort of generic comparison of the list, so that we can understand what is actually a new record, what is the update of the record, and which record does not exist anymore from the interface. So I built this model here, and then this model has three properties here. We have a list of the new records, and then we have a list of the update records, and we have a list to delete records. So essentially, this model is going to be very helpful for us to identify which of the models, when comparing two lists, differs in a way that inside the interface model, we don't have the records in a database. This is going to be create. Then the records that exist in the database and exist in the interface will be the update one. And then we will have a target and we will have a source, so that we can actually, from the target, from the source, you can actually update the target. So the source is going to be the new records here from the interface. And then we have a delete. So if in the list, let's call it an interface list, you don't have a record which you have in a database, then you would essentially mark those as a delete in the database. Now, generic list compare. Okay, the code here, I have to say, it's maybe not very friendly for the new joiners, but not new joiners, but newcomers in the development world, because there is a bit of a generics here. There are lists and a bit of a complicated LINQ queries, but just to run you through it, as I did in a model, we will have a certain source, we will have the new list. So the new list is going to represent our, let's say, an interface model, or any kind of model which you want to use to compare against the other one. And then we will be able to use the lambda expression to compare those two lists on relatively generic way. So you can, in your competitor, it's a bit difficult word for me to say, you can pass any expression, and then you can compare it on the different fields. So I was also very productive here, and I built a test. So what I did, I created two models here. So account, as you see here, classes, just a plain vanilla class with a few properties. And I also created account update model, where account model here kind of simulates the database model, and the update model simulates something that we're going to, essentially send with the interface. So the data that we get from the interface should be compared against the data inside the database, based on, in this case, unique identifier. So I choose here unique identifier, and in this case, I also built some of the demo data here. I built like a few accounts which exist in the database. So I created 4 accounts which kind of exist in the database as a test. So 1, 2, 3, and 4 are identifiers. And then from the update list in the interface, I have 1, 2, and 5, meaning that 1 and 2 are the same. So essentially, this would be marked or should be considered as records which are going to be updated. 3 and 4 does not exist here, which means 3 and 4 should be deleted from the database. And record number 5 should be created in the accounts database. And of course, I wrote the test already, and this is how you actually invoke this generic list comparer. So we have the database accounts, and then we have let's call it an interface accounts. And then for those two, so comparer of the account and then the update model from the account list, we're going to compare them on the unique identifier. So all the records which are the same, they're going to go either to create or to update or to delete. And as you see here, the tests are green, which means that we are successfully and correctly calculating the deltas between those two lists. And yeah, it's relatively good. So what can you actually do here in reality? You can really use this when you're doing kind of a full replication of the data. It's very useful. It's not really handy if you want to pull, I don't know, thousands of records of the accounts from the database. But if you update one account and you have a list of location, you can compare locations in the database, because you're going to retrieve them probably when you retrieve account from the database, and you should have the full list of locations in your interface, because this is the only way to compare, do you have those records or not? You know, if you don't have any unique key, if you're just comparing them, well, actually you do compare them on a unique key, but you need to have something else. You would have to really clean up everything and then recreate everything. That would be the only way. Of course, this is something where you can also compare oranges and apples. So what I can also do here, based on this list, I can create a completely new class, and I can call it fruit. And from the fruit, I can do very much the same thing. It doesn't really matter. I can say, let's say the integer is int, why not name, description, and let me just do also here something like unique key, and then, or let's just call it a key. And then here for the fruit, I would be able to do exactly the same as I'm doing here. So let me just do this copy paste of this one. Let's say fruits to compare, and then I said, what is this? This is a fruit. Okay, so let me just say this, and I want to pass just, oh, that's fine. Let's just do here. So I say key is this, key is this. I'm just going to pass exactly the same values here. The only difference here is I'm going to say that the name of this one is going to be apple, and the name of this little guy here is going to be Nana. And what else? God, that's fine. It doesn't really matter. So 1 and 2 should be the same, so I should be able kind of to update them and compare to this one. 1 is 2 is the same, 3 doesn't exist, 4 doesn't exist, 5 is to create. What should we put here? I don't know, lemon, let's say. I don't know, is lemon even a fruit, but okay, doesn't matter. So what I can say here, I will just actually even copy this method, and just please ignore the naming here. Should correctly even with fruit. So it's a bit of a, yeah, maybe not the best name. I just want to be kind of funny, which I am not. So the fruit here, I'm going to use now, instead of accounts update list, I'm going to use a fruit. And here I'm going to say it's no longer, I cannot longer compare it by unique identifier, because now I have a key. And here the key should be this one. So let me just see. To create is going to be identifier 5. Great. So everything should be more or less the same, I guess. Let us just run through this. I'm just curious, well, did I was able to blindly do this? Yeah, it works very well. So what is really nice here? I will just want to show you this to update. So I will debug this test, because right now, right here, you will see here to update, they have 2 results. And then you have an item 1, which is an account, right? They have a null values, whatnot. But then here, I give you the values. So essentially, in your code, in your integration layer, or whatever layer where you're building, you can have now a mapper between the fruit in this case and the account. So you can copy the name of the account to the name of your, well, whatever you're using here. So essentially, this is really the case where you can compare apples and oranges or whatever. So it's very nice, and well, I'm not so modest, I guess, but it is, in my opinion, quite effective way to compare the lists, and I think you know, it might be useful at the end of the day, especially for the integrations and let's say a bit more mass data update, not critical mass data update, but yeah. Anyways, that was it. So thank you very much, and have fun comparing lists. Bye bye.